Hello everyone and welcome back to Nintendo Everything Refresh. Now, if you are a regular here on our podcast, you are probably finding a little bit weird that I'm not Nick. So today, I'll be presenting the show, I'll be the host. Nick is not with us, but he is very well. So I'll be your host for the show. And as usual, I'm not alone here. You'll not be hearing me talking to myself. So, as usual, our first guest is Dennis.
Hello, everyone. Good to be here.
And we also have Nicolas.
Hey everyone!
Thank you for being here, guys. And today it's kind of a weird week. Last week we had kind of a full week because Nintendo made kind of a soft direct. We saw some posts on Twitter, on YouTube. They made some announcements, some new trailers. And this week we do not have a lot of stuff. But we are going to talk about some updates for some Nintendo games. We are going to talk about the eShop situation with the Wii U and the 3DS. We're also going to talk about some third-party rumors, about some Nintendo events, and more stuff down the line. But to start the conversation, I think the first thing that we can talk about, the most important one probably, it's about Mario Strikers. So a new update for the game, the first free update for the game just came out, and two characters were added to the game. They were Daisy and Shy Guy. Now, I don't think any of these characters are particularly surprising. They are pretty much characters that always appear in some of those spin-off Mario games, but Daisy in particular was a weird one that was not in the base game. So I think a lot of fans are finally happy to see that Daisy is in the game. However, I think we have a lot of opinions about Nintendo's general approach to these free updates with their multiplayer experiences. So I would like to ask you guys, in particular, I would like to ask you, Dennis. You made the review for this game on the site.
I did.
And I would say it was not a very positive review. And
yeah, surprisingly, too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of Mario Strikers, and I did not buy Battle League because I had some reservations. I had some problems with the game, and also the open demo did not made me a very good impression. So I would like to ask how this update affects your opinion on the game. Will you be revisiting it? You think it's good enough to make the experience a little bit better, or there's bigger problems here?
You know, I thought about revisiting it because I actually, after playing it, for however many hours I did for the review, after I got finished with the review, I continued to play it a little bit here and there. However, I will say at the moment, I own 3 Switches, and I usually install anything that we review on each Switch. Reason being is because I have one light, one regular Switch, and one Switch OLED, right? So I like to see how they look and perform between them. Now, performance-wise, obviously, we're going to be more or less the same, but because they have different screens and sort of a different structure to them, they will feel slightly different in terms of, ergonomics. From model to model. So that being said, I uninstalled it from every single device. So I haven't played it since it's not even installed. However, I did think about reinstalling it because of this update. However, once I figured out what the update gave, I realized it's still not substantial enough. Even though it's exciting that we're getting new content in the case of, Daisy and Shy Guy being playable characters, as well as the Desert Ruin Stadium and even a gear set. It doesn't change the fact that this game is just incredibly shallow, right? And so even though we have, these new things to play with and see, it doesn't change the fact that it doesn't change anything about the game that gives it any more depth, right? So it's still going to be empty. It's still going to be something I'm going to get tired of over 2 matches, and then I'm probably just going to uninstall it again, So I feel like it's at the moment it's not worth my time, unfortunately. And I wish there was more to it. I mean, you're right. My review was not very positive. We gave it a thumbs down, actually, which was very surprising because, I was super excited for Mario Strikers before it came out, Battle League in particular, and because I have a history with Mario Strikers, as you guys do as well, and but then the demo came out, right, Luiz? And like it was something that we were sort of like we weren't sure, right? Something felt off. It didn't feel right.
Yeah.
So we were a little worried. And then then we got the review copy, and my enthusiasm for it went down. It became something that, as I was writing the review, became how we rate our sort of neutral reviews, which is a sideways hand where it's like it's so-so, right? But by the time I was done writing the review, and as I continued to play it more in the middle of writing it, I was like, you know what, man, I just don't like this. I gotta be honest here. Like, I just don't like this. I think there was a part of me that really wanted to like it, but I had to put that bias aside and really give this a proper assessment and just be honest with myself and be like, this game is just half-baked. It's not good. The game came out June 10th, 2022, so a little over a month ago, right? And we're getting this update now with Daisy and Shy Guys. So it's like, why this, characters that should have been here from the beginning, with the additional content that's there. So if there was only going to be a 1 month difference, why didn't you just delay the game by a month so that way the reviews wouldn't be impacted so hard? I think you would still more or less get the same reaction, because again, the game doesn't have much to it, but at least it would be a little bit of cushion, right? There'd be a little padding there, and it wouldn't be as ill received as it was.
Yeah. I can totally understand your points here, because I was very excited for this game when it was announced, because the series was finally returning. But when the game came out, I simply did not felt inclined to buy it, because it costs a full price. And as you said, the actual content is very shallow. And I even said to myself, maybe after some updates I'll buy the game, but I think I'll just buy it if I see it in one of those rare Nintendo sales when they actually drop the price, because video games are super expensive here in Brazil, and 2022 in specifically is a year that we are full of different games, full of releases. So I don't see myself actually investing in Mario Strikers Battle League right now. And I think the thing that I like the most about these updates is to see the animation of those characters. So I just look at them on YouTube or something like that.
Yeah, that's all.
And then I'm pretty much satisfied.
Yeah. Exactly.
Nicolas, I'm not sure if you play a lot of those sports games from Nintendo, these multiplayers from Nintendo with those free updates, but what's your general take on that?
Yeah, well, I mean, nowadays I don't usually, because of the direction they've recently taken. But yeah, I think it's a lot of what Dennis said. As someone that has not purchased the game, just like you, Luiz, this doesn't really add anything for me, which I think is the major problem. Is like you also said, the characters are neat, but the main thing that's cool to see of them is the animations. I don't think they're going to drastically change the gameplay in any way, or like really improve on it in that regard. And again, the stadium is neat. Having a new stadium is fine, although I'm kind of questioning why they didn't have a desert-themed stadium in the first place. But even then, regardless, it's not something that changes the gameplay. It's like purely cosmetics. And the gear does technically change the gameplay, but it's still mostly cosmetic gear, and these are all things that I frankly don't really care about, because that's not the content I'm really looking for. Like, if the game had launched with, it launched with only 10 characters, but it had significantly more content, more single-player content to do, I would not have minded. My problem with it is the lack of content to the game, not the lack of, hey, you can play as 7 colors of Shy Guys, or you can run around in a desert, but it feels the same as running around in grass.
Yeah, and I think in general a big problem with those updates is that those new characters, they don't change the game in any meaningful way. So you are receiving those characters, as you said, Nicholas, they are mostly cosmetics. It's not like Smash Bros. When there's a new character and this whole characters has a totally different gameplay style, So I don't think it actually works. I want to have all those characters when I buy the game, so I can actually enjoy the variety and see more of the cosmetic side of things. When they are just giving us with those free updates, it feels very shallow. It feels like they are not adding a lot.
Yeah, it's similar to like the Mario tennis and golf games, where it feels like part of the reason this free update model just doesn't work is because it's not adding new things to experience, right? Because I think that's what most people go back to when you have these kinds of free update models is whenever there's a free update, it changes something in the game that's like, hey, I want to check out how that changed. Here, there's nothing really changing.
Yeah.
It's just the same game, but you can play as Daisy, which, I mean, is a draw to certain people, but still.
I mean,
it's really a half-assed approach to, if what I think most would consider live service, right? And it just doesn't work,
Yeah.
like you said, Nicholas. It just doesn't work.
yeah, and in general, I think those with some of Camelot's games, the games came out with lacking some very important modes, like I don't know, like the option. I think Mario Tennis Aces didn't have the options to play like a 3-match, something like that, and then they added that on free updates. Of course, it's something cool, but there's not a reason for why this wasn't in the base game at the first place. In general, I think those free updates they just don't change the game in general, and that's something interesting, Dennis, because I played the demo for Mario Strikers, and I had the impression that the gameplay was very complex, and I didn't have the opportunity to actually learn it. And I wonder if when you learn it, you can actually have more fun with the game. But at the same time, one of the reasons I didn't buy was because I felt like even if I actually learn to play this game, every time that I want to play with another person or with a person coming to my house, I have to teach them how to play, and then it will be a while until the point where we actually have fun. So I don't know if it was a good decision to make the gameplay style so complicated.
Yeah, it's weird because it's not exactly a pick up and play type of game, but at the same time, having learned everything with the tutorial and trying to implement everything that I learned, all that complexity into your standard matches in both tournament modes, online modes, and just basic, local modes, it really doesn't. It's the complexity. It almost feels unnecessary because it's almost it's like a disguise, right? Because a lot of it really is just tackle. That's all it is, but you're tackling in different ways. Okay, you can power up your tackle. Okay, now you can tackle your own teammate to push them forward into an opponent. It's just these different types of tackles. That's all it is, And so it's weird that it teaches you these things and tries to create this almost fake complexity. I mean, there's stuff there to learn for sure, but a lot of it in terms of implementation is just it's just really poorly implemented at the end of the day, especially when you don't have the ball for longer than 2 seconds at a time,
Yeah.
so you can't really do anything that you've learned like at all. There's no strategy to it and that you can't even think on the fly because everything's so erratic, everything's so crazy at any given moment. You don't know what's going to happen at any point. So
I remember. Say again, Nicholas?
There is a dodge mechanic to try and de-incentivize tackling, but it's in the demo, or I guess the closed beta, it felt so tight that under online delay, you basically couldn't really dodge tackles. So even that aspect of the rock paper scissors gameplay just did not really work online.
Yeah, and I tried too. I tried doing all those that dodge and stuff. Everything it taught me, but ultimately, it's like you can't guess anything that's happened. Strategy implies you have time to think. There is no time to think here, so but there's not even time to react. That's the weird problem. So you're in this weird sort of limbo of well, whatever happens. It's like a big, snow globe, and then you're just trying to look at each particular flake and trying to figure out where they're going to land. You don't know. It's going to be different every time. So
it makes for a huge skill ceiling, but also way too big of a skill floor.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, in general, I think, and they made the terrible decision to make the open demo doubles only. So you were not controlling the whole team. You have to divide with another person. So I was completely lost during that open demo. So yeah, really sad to see because I love next level games and I think they did a great job with the graphics and the animation, and I'm pretty sure that they tried their best. But yeah, maybe it's a lesson for future games and level design in general. I think they still are a great developer and can make in the future make more great games for Nintendo.
Yeah,
Now,
I mean, there's definitely a good game here. but unfortunately, I feel like, this probably should have been something that came out next year instead, with a story mode, with a good cast of characters, and just with a lot more to do, a lot more collectibles, and just make the game feel rewarding. The game feels just so lifeless, unfortunately, which is, crazy when the animations are so great. But yeah, it's unfortunate.
Yeah, it's like the most basic. You have to have fun playing the game, and sadly, not always that happens. Uh, but also, on a not very positive note, Nintendo provided additional details for the ending of purchases in the 3DS and Wii U eShops. This is a situation that has been going for a while, and as always, this is at least it is nice that Nintendo is giving us those notice. They are actually making it very clear how everything is going to happen, when it's going to happen. So the purchases will be ending definitely in March 27 of 2023. So up to this point, it will be not possible to make any purchase on the 3DS and Wii U eShop. You'll still be able to download the games that you already bought and stuff like that, but you'll not be able to make new purchases. And also, they clarified that in August 29 of 2022, still this year, you'll no longer be able to add funds to the Wii U and 3DS eShop. So if you buy an eShop card or something like that, we are at the final moments to actually do something like that. You'll be, however, still be able to redeem download codes for specific games and stuff like that until the final dates. Something I'm not sure exactly why that, but Fire Emblem Fates will end. You'll not be able to purchase Fire Emblem Fates a month earlier, in February 28th, 2023. Not sure why this specific game, but they also added that in the information that they released. So, do you guys still have something to buy on the eShop? You still have some funds laying out there, or you guys already bought everything that you wanted from these consoles?
There's definitely still some stuff I'd want to pick up, probably on the Wii U eShop, but the thing is, most of it is going to be like GBA games, and it's going to hinge a lot on whether we get, a GBA online service for the Switch. Because otherwise, there's a lot of stuff like Minish Cap and whatnot on the Wii U eShop that's kind of just going to be gone. And at that point, it might not be a terrible idea to download possibly jailbreak your 3DS and then download GBA games on it, or do the same with the Wii U, because at that point, you're not going to be able to get them in any way, which just kind of sucks. But
yeah, I mean, this always happens with consoles like that. I think with Nintendo actually closing the eShop, it almost feels as to incentivize to jailbreak or do stuff like that to actually get access to these games, because we know that these machines can run a lot of stuff. And when you actually open the door to that, I think at the end of the day, it ends up work more. I'm desperate to buy something like an external 8D just to put all my games on the Wii U, because I have a lot of games, but I can only download the ones with the Wii U internal memory, which is like 32 gigabytes.
Yeah.
So I'm still trying to download some of them so I do not lose them.
I'm sure I still have a wish list of stuff. I haven't turned on my 3DS in a while, but it's sad because the 3DS eShop was incredible. I had a routine even because of how often I would get stuff from the 3DS eShop, that like every Thursdays were always my favorite day of the week, right? Because that's when the eShop would update, right? So every Thursday I'd wake up and I'd go straight to the 3DS eShop and see what was new, see what the deals were and stuff like that. But honestly, looking back on it, I have pretty much everything that I want. I think the only thing that I don't want that I should probably get is Yokai Watch 3, because getting a physical copy of that is, number one, impossible, but number two, if you can find one, it's like $120, right? And
Wow.
but it's still available digitally at the moment for its MSRP of $40, right? So that's probably the only thing I can really think of off the top of my head. Otherwise, I'm not really too concerned about too much else, because I have a pretty large 3DS library, both digitally and physically, and I've gotten pretty much everything I've wanted, including all the classics. Now it doesn't change the fact that I'm I don't want it to go away. Like I very much would appreciate the eShop staying very much intact, because whenever you see stuff like this, it just makes me worry about the future, right? And when is Switch's time going to come, right? Of when they shut down the eShop there. So I just wish they just had a one network infrastructure that would just stick and stay with consistency. And I wrote an article on this, and you can go to nintendoeverything.com and read about it, but I'm not going to talk too much about it. But yeah, I just wish there was a little more consistency because, Xbox has always been Xbox Live. All that stuff carries with you. PlayStation Network's always been PlayStation Network. All that stuff carries with you. So even though, for example, they wanted to shut down the PS3 and the PS Vita stores, Sony, um, your stuff is still there. It's still safe, right? And that's all I want. I just want that comfort of safety. But with Nintendo, especially with what we've seen with the DS and the original Wii, when is that time going to come where, we're no longer able to, never mind buy stuff, but just even download stuff we've already bought? I think that's disrespectful towards the consumer. And, there's could be hundreds, if not thousands of dollars that people have spent on digital content that they'll just never be able to get access to, ever again. I don't know. It's weird to sort of cut off that method of, not being able to access your own digital library. It's weird, but yeah, I mean, that's the unfortunate part of having a digital future, right? It's convenient, but you have those unfortunate negatives and those caveats of precisely this. So it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Since in the Switch generation, I've been 100% digital, so sometimes I worry about that. I'm like, because I don't have a lot of options here in Brazil because the physical cartridges are super expensive, and because they are imported, they arrive here in Brazil like 2 or 3 weeks after the original release. So imagine now I'm dying to play Xenoblade 3 right now. So if I were to wait for that, I wouldn't be able to. So I end up just buying digital so I can have I can pay less and actually have access to the game immediately. And that's the only way that Nintendo sells their game officially in Brazil right now. So there's not a lot of option if you don't want to import those games. But I worry about that. And I mean, to be honest, at the moment I'm not super worried, but I start to think maybe in the future I will regret buying all those games, because there's still people here in Brazil that are super like, I'm not going to have those games digital. I don't want to lose those games never, so I'm going to wait 2 or 3 weeks, but I want to have my cat. There's also a lot of people who enjoy those collections to have all those physical copies, and I can totally understand that. So yeah, it is a situation that we are going to see how it develop in the future. I'm going to guess that Nintendo is thinking about something related to that, because I mean, with how successful the Switch is right now and how successful their whole system is right now, I hope that in the future they are not to completely abandon this. Like if we see another console, it will probably be backwards compatibility with the Switch, and I hope that the whole eShop can go on with the same games and can exactly in the way that it works with Xbox right now, where I can access the games from Xbox One, even 360. So
Yeah.
I think that's probably the best solution for that.
Yeah. I mean, it's from the Wii to the Wii U, the eShop did get completely revamped since we went from the Wii Shop channel to the Wii U eShop. But since then, they've kind of settled on the eShop as like their thing, even if they have changed the layout for every system since then. So hopefully, since they have this kind of established structure and we're heading into what is presumably going to be a pretty similar sequel console, you would assume.
I hope so.
At least.
I hope so, yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully they would keep the eShop infrastructure similar enough that transferring purchases or just keeping your purchases isn't something that's a big hassle. Like, I think for the Wii to Wii U, you could get codes for your Wii Shop channel games and transfer them to the Wii U and get them for, like, cheaper or something like that. There was some kind of weird carryover system that was just pretty unintuitive, but you could argue that it was still there. It was very bizarre.
Yeah, they tried.
Yeah, because cross-buy wasn't really a thing that was implemented like how Sony had it, right? Like, I loved the cross-buy thing where, I could buy a game on PlayStation Vita, and get the PS3 version as well. Now that usually happened with a lot of indie games. You didn't see that usually happen with bigger games, but that was nice that was a thing, But that was very rare between 3DS and Wii U. I think one of the few games that did it was like, I don't know, like Shantae. Maybe I think one of the Shantae games had gave you a code when you would buy it on 3DS. But that's the thing, is they would give you a code, right? It wasn't automatically input in your account.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Yeah.
right. So that became a whole different fiasco. And then if you lost that code, too bad. So.
Can we mention though how I can't think of a single logical reason why Fire Emblem Fates is ending purchase a month earlier than everything else?
Not sure why that.
Because even you'll be able to buy the DLC until the March 27th. It's just the games itself. I think Birthright and Conquest you can't buy. That's it.
It's a Nintendo owned game, so there's not copyright or I don't know, maybe for music animation. I can't think of something related to that. Yeah.
And it's not like a Fire Emblem thing either, because Awakening is fine. It's literally just Fates. It's the only game that this is happening to.
Yeah. I imagine it's something super specific that only the guy who worked with network infrastructure actually knows why. So he's like, please put this in the notice for some crazy reason.
It's probably just a guy who probably liked that game the least. So it's just I just want to see this gone as soon as possible.
Sorry, guys, this can't last until March. Sorry.
This is really important to me.
If I have to see this for one more month, I can't.
Oh, man. Yeah, but overall, at least they are informing us that all this stuff is going to happen. But also related to Nintendo, we have an interesting thing that is going to happen in Japan, which is Nintendo Live 2022. And this is an event that has been happening, but it was in a hiatus since 2019. Yeah. However, now it is coming back after all the COVID stuff. It is still going on, but at least now we can take precautions and all that stuff for the event to actually happen. And in this event, a lot of stuff will happen, mostly a lot of tournaments for games like Splatoon 3 and the Super Smash Bros. Tournaments, with also Nintendo Switch Sports. And I think in general it's just an event that Nintendo makes on Japan to kind of shows their games and their brands, stuff like that. Actually, it would be really interesting to see something like that here in the West with their own brands and their own events happening, because Nintendo has so many powerful series and powerful names that I think they can actually do an event by themselves, even if it is something related to the Universal Parks or something like that. In general, it's just something nice to see that it is returning. Do you guys have something to say about it? Have some opinions about the event?
It's kind of funny. It kind of reminds me of the Nintendo World Championships that they held a couple of times in recent years.
That was awesome.
This is even bigger though, because they have stuff like comedy duos coming to talk about the games, and they have concerts and whatnot, so it really is a big celebration of everything going on. I think probably the bigger thing coming out of this particular Nintendo Live is just the fact that people are going to be able to play Splatoon 3 early, which is kind of funny when you think that, hey, they're going to be playing the game in a competitive setting earlier than everyone, where, you better learn the ins and outs pretty quickly.
I'm pretty sure that Splatoon 3, the online side of things is pretty much complete. I think the only thing that is, because they even released a full gameplay of an online match a while ago. I think they are actually working on stuff like the single player experience or things like that, because I think the actual online experience must be almost ready.
Also, I take back what I said because I was not paying attention. It is coming. The Nintendo Live is happening in October. So, never mind about that. It is happening a month after Splatoon 3's release.
Okay, yeah.
I do think this will probably be the first official event featuring the game, though. Which, to be fair, is also interesting in its own right, because it means it's probably going to be the first, meta-defining event where people will really be able to showcase what works in the game or not.
Yeah.
And from then, devs will probably have to balance from there and see, hey, what was completely overwhelming and whatever. So that should be pretty interesting.
Do you have anything to add, Dennis?
Oh, I mean, no, I mean basically like Nicholas hit all the points. I think it's an interesting thing that we're having, and I almost forgot about it because like you said, it's been on hiatus since
Yeah.
2019. Um, but it's exciting to see. It's exciting to see because this is something that I've wanted from them for quite some time. I think everyone, like all the big publishers and all the platform holders, they're getting to a point now where these events, they do feel like more like celebrations, right? Like you were saying, and I like that. Like you don't even necessarily have to show me world premieres and stuff like that, but I do appreciate having these events that brings people together, gets everyone excited about these games all over again. Like I saw Mario Kart's going to be there. Obviously, I mean Mario Kart 8 has been around since like forever now at this point, but the game is still just constantly fun and something to go back to, right? So, yeah, it's an exciting time and an exciting moment to just really celebrate these games. But I do wish they would do more with it because I think it's obvious that Nintendo being Nintendo and being that gigantic, globally known company that they are, there's no reason to, keep it, Japan only unless there's, I don't know, maybe they've been doing R&D, maybe they realize it's not something that is feasible here for either, you know, uh, safety reasons or political reasons, whatever the case may be. But, it's a large part of their market share is in the West, right? So it's odd that stuff like this doesn't typically happen as much because it's not something that we're not asking for another, even though we are getting it, we're not asking for another Super Nintendo world. But obviously that takes billions and billions of dollars. But just a small little event, rent a small, I don't know, arena, venue, whatever, could just be a little half of a convention center. Like you can afford it, I know you can. So
Oh, definitely.
it's
I mean,
yeah.
to be fair, I think they would fill half a convention center a little bit too quickly.
That's true. That's true too. Yeah, but like Xbox has their events where they kind of get everyone together. They do that periodically, where they have this sort of fan celebration. Everybody kind of comes together, and everyone's there. Like Phil Spencer's there, and he's just talking to people. He's just having a good time. It's just you get to have this one-on-one conversation with the people that help grow your brand, and the fans that support you, and the fans that continue on in this legacy of what makes gaming so great, not just Nintendo, but gaming as a whole so great. So yeah, it's weird to sort of cut people off like that. But either way, it's for this event in particular, it's super exciting to see, and hopefully they have more of a quote unquote tour for it. But yeah, I want to see them grow on this and expand on this. Make this be their new sort of Nintendo version of an E3, right? Like, never mind a Nintendo Direct that just happens around E3 time. Like, I want them to have their own celebration of the year of this is Nintendo, this is what we do, this is what we're excited for. By the way, here's all of our awesome new stuff coming out soon. Yeah, it just builds up so much hype and brand loyalty, and it's just exciting to see, and have exclusive merchandise and stuff like that. And yeah, I don't know, it's exciting.
Here's Metroid Prime Federation Force premiering in a competitive tournament.
Okay, all right, yeah, well, yeah,
because that worked out so well the first time.
I mean, to be honest, when I saw it for the first time, I didn't even know it was related to Metroid. I found it quite fun.
Yeah, I mean, that's how everyone reacted, though, right? Because I think they were like, this is a new game we've been working on called, like, Blast Ball or something. People were like,
Oh my
what?
God, yeah.
What is this?
The Wii U era had some weird announcements on that same style. But yeah, I think these topics are basically what we have to say directly related to Nintendo. But we also have some interesting other news about third parties and other companies in general. And one of the news that I wanted to discuss a little with you guys is that PlatinumGames has hired Takao Yamane, which was a person who worked at Nintendo for a long time. Apparently he worked with Nintendo for 27 years, and he was kind of an important person related to he worked with many stuff in different subsidiary of Nintendo, but at the end he was general manager at the company in Japan. And apparently he was hired by Platinum to help with all the publishing stuff, because we know that Platinum right now is trying to be more than just a developer for other companies. They are actually trying to self-publish most of their games, and I think that's amazing because Platinum is a great developer, and the more freedom that they have, I think that's better for everyone. We saw that they've made great works working with Nintendo, working with Square, with other companies, so I think they can make pretty good stuff on their own. And he kind of gave this interview where he shared a lot of points. It seems that he is pretty excited to work with Platinum, and he said a lot of stuff about Kamiya and about Inaba, both that work at Platinum and are very well-known names. And in general, I get the impression that he will not be super involved with gaming developments, but he wants to help in the best way possible to publish the games and to make those games a reality, more in the managing area, on the administration stuff. So it seems that he'll be a good help to the company. Dennis, I know that you are a big fan of Bayonetta, so I can assume that you are also a big fan of Platinum Games in general. And what's your overall opinion on that, on the company and how it is growing, and what do you think of the future for Platinum Games?
I think it's very exciting, and I think they're at a point right now that I'd love to see them in, because there was, I don't know if you guys remember this, but there was a time, maybe really not even that long ago, I want to say maybe 7 years ago, 6 or 7 years ago, where Platinum was actually not doing very good in terms of funds and staying afloat and stuff like that. Even though they had these successful games, they were really taking on anything and everything they could just to stay afloat, right? And a lot of that time was spent making a lot of licensed games. Most notably, one of the first ones to come to mind is they did do work on the Legend of Korra game, as well as a couple of other. As well as a couple of other licensed games as well. But that Legend of Korra one is one of the first ones to come to mind in particular, because I remember playing that in particular, and it definitely felt like a Platinum game, but only if they had like $100. It was not very well put together. But yeah, and I remember reading an article too where they're like, look, I mean, Activision just kept coming to us like, can you do this? Can you do that? And they did the Transformers game as well, right? Transformers, I don't remember what the subtitle was, but they did do a Transformers game. But yeah, they were just taking anything and everything that they could because they were being funded to do so, right? And it was a way to write a paycheck, and I don't blame them, right? They did what they had to do. But now, with the success of, Bayonetta just taking them tenfold, and then as well as Astral Chain, and then of course Nier. I mean, they couldn't be in a better place right now. I mean, they are one of the household names to me personally, that when I see their logo pop up anywhere, I'm like, oh, this is gonna be good.
Yeah.
This is gonna be good, So yeah, it's exciting to see them grow like this and get such a veteran as well, because I think someone like Yamane wouldn't just walk into Platinum if he didn't see that there was not only potential there, but a bright future, right? This is a guy who's been with one of the most prestigious companies, Nintendo, for almost 30 years, right? So, I mean, and he wouldn't have just walked into Platinum, like I said, without realizing that there's a big future in here that he sees himself being a big part of.
Yeah, totally.
Dude could have just retired, honestly.
Yeah, true, very true. Yeah, but I guess he wanted, one last hoorah, before he did so. But yeah, I mean, Platinum is just such a fantastic team with such creative minds. I mean, Hideki Kamiya is personally one of my favorite developers of all time, responsible for also some of my favorite games of all time. So yeah, it's exciting to see this, and exciting to see Platinum Games, grow further. And, like I said, just become a household name, and a name that when you look at it, is synonymous now with quality and just epic.
We're going to pointedly ignore Babylon's Fall. That doesn't count.
Correct, which is why I didn't mention it.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was surprised to see that was a Platinum game. After the release, I saw about the game, and wow, they were involved with that. Kind of weird.
That's the Square Enix touch.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, that's that good old up there with
Avengers,
Babylon, Wonderworld, and Avengers too, and the Quiet Man. We can't forget about the Quiet Man. Good old Quiet Man. by Square Enix. My God, what a disaster that was.
Yeah, I think actually when this came out it will be yesterday, but I just made a video about Platinum for the channel, and I mean just a small rank where I talked about the collaborations between Nintendo and Platinum. So basically Star Fox Zero, Astral Chain, Wonderful 101, and Bayonetta 2. So, and man, I just love those games. I know that Star Fox Zero is not like the best game that they put out, but I still see their passion in that project. And as I said in the video, I think the biggest reason why Star Fox Zero is not as good as it should is probably more on Nintendo than on Platinum, because I think Miyamoto was very trying to justify the gamepad's existence, and at the end of the day that brought more problems than solutions, I think, to the overall project. Platinum as a developer, I really respect them, and I don't think there's other company that can make action look as good as Platinum does in general. Like they really bring their A game. Like some of the action scenes on Wonderful 101 are some of the most amazing stuff that I've ever saw. And I think games like Nier Automata and Astral Chain proves that Platinum is not only this company that can make those Hideki Kamiya hack and slash games, but they can make more than that. They can make those games that have puzzles, exploration, and beautiful visuals in general. So I'm excited to see more of that. In particular, I think that he's mentioning Project GG that was announced a while ago, and I think it is what Platinum is working on at the moment to make their biggest to self-publish.
Yeah, they were talking very excitedly because they had released. I don't know if they released a written interview, but they released like a short physical like video interview, and they had mentioned Project GG mostly. And Yamane was like, "This is something unique. I don't think I've seen this like ever before, and it's truly impressive. And I want to be part of the development of this and like the release of this and make sure this comes to fruition." So it really does seem like they're putting a lot of eggs in that basket, which is very interesting. I really, really want to see what that is because I don't think we've gotten any details really. I think they might have been like a short teaser back a year or two ago when they were showing off like their what was it, 5 or 6 platinum projects.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, what could that be? You know,
I just remember seeing a dog.
Yeah, it's funny because like we've said, they are mostly an action game studio. They've delved into other things in the past, like shooters with Star Fox Zero or Soul Cresta. But they are mostly an action studio, so it's kind of interesting to wonder, like, hey, how are they going to expand on that that specialty to kind of really make the best game that they can? Like, is it going to be going in an open world direction, or are they going to be adding more like RPG elements, like they sort of did with Nier Automata? You know, I just wonder what is this? I want to know more.
Yeah, I mean, we know that Hideki Kamiya has like a very rich catalog with Okami and other stuff that he did at Capcom. So I'm pretty sure that I think they are trying to follow a bit of a different direction, even though probably the games will still have a lot of action. I'm pretty sure that Project GG will have a lot of action. But as I said with Astral Chain, for example, I think it's a game that really tries to pace out a little bit because you have, of course, those big fights and a super intricate combat system, but there's some detective bits in the game, and I really liked it. They made the game a little bit more interesting, more focused on some of the dialogues and world building in general.
Yeah, I mean, if Project GG was in any way a sequel to Okami, a spiritual successor to Okami, I would just melt. That is like the one thing I've always wanted to have happen. So no complaints from me.
That would be truly awesome. Yeah. But okay, we managed to talk about PlatinumGames, but there's also another stuff about other third party, more specifically Ubisoft. So there's a rumor about Immortals Fenyx Rising, about a new spin-off for Immortals Fenyx Rising, and well, basically it's a rumor, but because it's a rumor about Ubisoft, I think it's true. Pretty sure it's true because it's like one of the worst companies to actually keep some secrets. Sometimes it almost feels as they are purposefully releasing stuff unofficially. But the rumor is that Ubisoft Quebec is developing something. After this is coming from Jeff Grubb, and he says that Immortal Fenyx Rising will have a sequel, but it's not a proper sequel. It's more of a spin-off in the same way. It will be, the project is called Oxygen, and you're a hero, and you can choose between a guy or a girl, and it is based on Hawaiian Polynesian culture this time around. So it is very different from the one that was based on Greek mythology, and he says that they still try to be visually stylized, but it looks less of a copy to Breath of the Wild. It is in early pre-production, has some concept art, and it's coming maybe in 2025, so it's still a long way. I have Immortal Fenyx Rising, but I must admit that I never got too far in the game. I'm not sure if that's because the Switch version has some problems with frame rates. It's not a bad port, but I think just because it is an open world adventure and sometimes it feels a little too inconsistent for my taste. But I know a lot of people enjoyed the game, and honestly the gameplay felt really tight. I could see that they were trying to replicate the same formula of Breath of the Wild with this open space, no boundaries, and you have those small places like the shrines where you can solve puzzles and make more combat. Mm-hmm. In general, it looks like a fun game, but sadly, it didn't catch me. I still pretend to give it another chance, but yeah, not a very. I think this actually happens a lot with some Ubisoft games. I like the concept, I like the idea, I buy the game, but then when I actually play it, I don't go very far. But are you guys excited for this? Do you guys actually play Immortal Fenyx Rising? What are your opinions?
I did not play Immortals, but I do think this is it's an interesting direction to take it, and to be honest, it does feel like a very Ubisoft direction to take it. Kind of similar to Assassin's Creed, where it's like, hey, same concept, but, different culture, different area. But I think it's neat because, I don't like I said, I did not play Immortals Fenyx Rising, but I would assume a lot of what they could have done with Greek mythology was kind of, expended in that game. I don't know how much more they could have pushed it. So I think it's a good choice for them to have just gone in a completely different direction in that regard and say, hey, we're going to start exploring other mythologies. So now we're going into Hawaiian Polynesian, which is also pretty cool because, hey, that's a pretty niche kind of mythology to delve into as far as popular culture goes. I think the only real big thing that's done that recently is Moana. So that'll just be kind of neat. It'll be interesting to see what their take on it is. It'll probably make for pretty different visuals in a pretty different world, since I imagine there'll be much more focus on water. I don't know. It's a Ubisoft game, so there's always kind of a need to be careful, but I heard good things about Immortals Fenyx Rising. Like, even though it was arguably a Breath of the Wild clone, kind of mechanically, a lot of people still really enjoyed it. So I think this definitely has potential to be good, especially if it kind of tries to carve its own niche in that regard.
I like the idea of having Assassin's Creed cel-shaded series
so much.
I think it makes for
it was one of those games that
I've
been following for a while.
In parts
even when
because
it
I
was
think
called Gods and
sometimes
Monsters.
when I'm playing some Assassin's Creed game, I feel super bored. Mostly with the side quests. It actually feels like I'm watching a history class or something like that sometimes. So I like the idea of having this more colorful, more maybe a little more gameplay focus with a similar take from Breath of the Wild, more focus on level design and stuff like that. I like that idea. Did you ever play Immortal Fenyx Rising, Dennis?
Yes. I have played Immortals Fenyx Rising. I played a lot of it. I bought it twice. I have it on PC as well. We reviewed it for NintendoEverything.com. The Switch version of it, and I personally loved it. It was a brilliant game. It was everything that I wanted. It was a Breath of the Wild clone, but did I care? No. No, it did what it did really, really great. And being in that Greek setting and having a more stylized, essentially what was a more stylized Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which is one of the best Assassin's Creeds in my opinion. It was wonderful. It was absolutely wonderful. The worlds were beautiful. All the different quadrants. The humor was actually like really good. It was a little slapstick at first, but honestly, like it made me laugh a lot. And the character creation was really great. I don't know. It was such a beautiful world to jump into. I never got around to playing the DLC content, even though I did get the gold edition. But yeah, but the base game is fantastic, and every time I see it on sale, even though I've already owned it, it's like I want to buy it again, because that's how much I enjoy the game. But yeah, no, it's a wonderful game with so much charm, and seeing them go this direction, like an Assassin's Creed direction, and wanting to sort of take on that Hawaiian Polynesian culture, that's exciting. I think that's great because it's like Nicholas was saying, it's not something you normally see. It's not something that is on the pop culture side of things, right? And I personally love that. I don't want to see or experience the same thing that we've been experiencing time and time and time again because it's what sells, right? Take me somewhere new. Be the piece of art that stands out, right? Stop doing what everyone else is doing. Stop following trends, man. It's like, so I appreciate that they're going this route, because God knows, I'm sure Ubisoft probably wanted them to make it turn into a battle royale. So, so thankfully they did. But yeah, no, it'll be exciting. I'm super stoked for it.
Now, I think I'll have to give another chance to the game. Actually, I was hoping to play it on the Xbox. I think next time on sale, I'll see if I buy it. Or maybe one day it will appear on the Game Pass, because some Ubisoft games are starting to appear on the Game Pass. So true. Maybe I'll wait for that also. But yeah, I remember playing the beginning, and I felt like it was a Breath of the Wild clone, but like in the right way. Like I saw that they were kind of taking that base that Breath of the Wild has, but developing it more, putting more cutscenes, a little bit more of story, and giving their own twist to some stuff, adding some RPG elements. So yeah, I will try to give another chance to the game. Now, something that I wanted to talk in general, not a specific topic, but something that is kind of always appearing on the gaming world are the leaks. And we saw recently some leaks for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and the leaks for the Pokemon series are kind of a tradition right now. I think there's always leak for Pokemon games that will soon coming out. And we also, in other type of leak, but Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is almost releasing right now. We are almost there, so close. And the game also already leaked. People are already playing it. The game, the actual files for the game are already on the internet. There's some music of the game are already on YouTube, and the spoilers are going out. And this is also another thing that always happens with every Nintendo game. When it's close to launch, people have access to the game early, and people who have their Switch, who made some modification on the Switch, can actually play the game. And I want to ask you guys, what is your overall reaction to leaks? Do you guys actually search for leaks, or do you prefer to stay out of it?
I mean, personally, that will really depend on the game, and also partly on, I guess, the marketing for the game. So, for example, something like Xenoblade 3, I will do everything possible to avoid any leak I can possibly avoid, because I don't want anything excessively spoiled for that game. I do not want to know any of the story before I go in. I do not want to know any more gameplay aspects. Everything they've shown has been more than enough to convince me that this is what I want. I don't need to know any more about the story, and I'd rather experience that in person. On the opposite side, for something like the recent Pokemon games, personally, I have found that the marketing for the last couple, or I guess the last 3 Pokemon games, Arceus, Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, and then Sword and Shield, have all been kind of lackluster, in that the marketing just has not really given me enough information before launch to make that kind of, I guess, informed purchase.
Oh, true.
Where it just feels like they're not showing off enough of the game, and even just talking about things like core mechanics or how certain things work, which was especially a problem with Arceus, where just there's this whole new battle system, there's this whole new like catching system, things with like moves and evolutions, how that works was all overhauled, and there was like none of that talked about in the trailers. It was all stuff you either had to like just figure out in game, and just learn out, oh, this is completely different, or you looked at leaks for it. Similarly to Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, there was a lot of debate before that game launched of, hey, is this a straight up remake or not? Like, is this literally just Diamond and Pearl with nothing added onto it? Or is there content from Platinum? Is there new content like what they did with Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire? And it wasn't super clear to the point that it's like, okay, well, let me look something up leak-wise, because this is information I need to know before I make this purchase. So that's kind of where I'm at, although Pokemon is mostly an exception. I don't think I would be looking for leaks of games I intend to play in most situations, because most of the time if I'm going to buy a game, I know I'm going to buy that game. It's not a situation where a leak is going to inform my decision.
Yeah.
Pokemon is really just the exception for me, because the recent marketing just feels like I'm not getting the information that I need to know. Like, I could care less about knowing the, like, 20, 30, whatever new Pokemon, but things like new mechanics and how the game is structured, that's kind of what I would like to know, because that's kind of the problem that I've had with a lot of modern Pokemon games.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Even in the case of Scarlet and Violet, we still don't know a lot about how the game actually works. And I remember with Arceus, the marketing was really dubious to if it was a spin-off or if it was a mainline game. So we couldn't actually know what was in the game, what wasn't. And I think after release, it became a little bit more clear that this was a kind of spin-off, because the overall gameplay was super different, but the Pokemon Company never stated something like that. What about you, Dennis?
Yeah, I'm pretty much in the same boat as Nicholas. I think it's a game by game basis for me. There's definitely games that I don't want spoiled at all. But Nicholas made a good point where sometimes you actually have to rely on the spoilers because the marketing tells you literally nothing. And Arceus is a great example of that, where I think I made a remark a while back. I don't know if it was on this show or somewhere else, but I remember saying, like, after the third or fourth Arceus trailer, I was just like, they have been showing the same footage every single time. Like, this is the same trailer. Every time there's a new trailer, it's new as in, like, okay, they put another one out today, but like footage-wise, we saw this already. Like it's the same thing over and over again. So yeah, no, it's a great example of it just a lack of it, and just being like, look, at this point, I'll take what I can get. Like, what exactly am I playing? And is this going to be, a purchase that works for me? Games aren't cheap, so you gotta sell me on it. You're not gonna sell me showing me the same trailer over and over again. But at this point, Pokemon's so big where it's just like, you don't even have to show a trailer. It just says Pokemon.
Yeah.
Right. So
Pokemon subtitle, buy it.
Yeah, exactly. And to be fair, I'm part of the problem. Because I will buy it. So, but still, but what about, those people that are more indifferent towards it, or maybe, maybe they miss out every other generation because they're just like, I don't really care about Pokemon this year. Me, it's in my DNA. I have no choice. Like, even if I don't want to, I just naturally gravitate towards it anyways. And I just kind of get a mind of their own and walk towards the front desk, to check out. But yeah, it's a game-by-game basis, and I know in the case of, let's say, Death Stranding, for example, even though leaks weren't really a thing for that, but, I didn't want to know anything. I stayed far away from stuff like that because I knew that was going to be a very story-driven game, and I wanted to experience that completely blind, and what a thing of beauty that ended up being, right? But in the case, like, way before the Switch came out, when it was just known as the NX, right? Everything that came out, I was reading. I was like, give me it. I want to know all this information, right? So I love stuff when it's in regards to hardware, but software, yeah, it's a case-by-case basis. In the case of Pokemon, it's weird. It's either or, right? It's either or. So I've tried staying away from a lot of the stuff so far regarding Scarlet and Violet. And I've done pretty good so far, but also if I do end up seeing something, I'm not going to be too peeved about it. I know at the end of the day, it's like, okay, new Pokemon, new region, new game, like that's ultimately what it is. But yeah, I don't really necessarily want to know story content. I don't want to see the gym leaders just yet. I don't want to see, I don't know. I want to go in and experience that world, and don't show me all the big moments, because Pokemon's never really been one, even though they've been doing it more and more, they've never really been one for cutscenes and stuff like that, right? So, but now that they've been doing it more, that stuff has more of a value to it, and I don't want that spoiled for me because, I do look forward to those moments where you are, running into a legendary for the first time. What's the epic cutscene behind that, stuff like that. But again, it's a case by case basis.
Yeah, I'm on the same page as you guys. I don't like to be spoiled, and I think one of the saddest leaks related to story stuff and spoilers was the one that happened to The Last of Us Part 2, because I think it actually made
Yeah,
the
that was really bad.
experience... Yeah, I think it actually made the... I can just imagine how the developers felt, because that was something that I think the player had to experience playing the game, had to be surprised while playing the game to see that happening, and I think it actually made people make a lot of wrong assumptions about the game and the story and everything else.
Yeah. And
Now,
that's actually a great point because, Last of Us Part 2 especially, and again, it goes back to being such a story-driven game, right? Like
yeah,
Death Stranding is. So Last of Us had such a strong emotional attachment to so many people, myself included. It's one of my favorite games ever. But Last of Us Part 2, and we're not going to say what it is, but that is a moment that they should have saved for later on. Because I think one of the reasons why it did leak is because it happened so early on, right? So the earlier it happens, when people get hands on it and start playing it, the quicker they'll come into contact with it, right? So if you save something like that for later on in the game, let's say, 15 hours into the game, it won't get out as quickly, but something like that, as strong as that was, yeah, I don't know. I mean, they did it for, they had their reasons for doing it, not the leak, but, story-wise, they had their reasons for doing it. But yeah, I don't know, because I was in that camp also, just like you, Luiz, right? Where it's just like that impact was sort of lost, and it would have been much more impactful if I saw that blind, right? Or if that happened to me blind, but unfortunately it didn't. It was leaked, it got lost everywhere, and, or it went all over the internet, and yeah, that part was sort of ruined, and it just didn't have that same impact. It was unfortunate, and it definitely changed my views on the entirety of the game as well. So,
oh yeah,
yeah, and I just didn't end up enjoying it as much as the first. So, yeah.
Yeah. It's funny considering that I think just this week there was another pretty massive leak for Last of Us Part 1 remake.
man, they
Yeah, all over
never.
again.
Like, what is
It
happening
always
over
happens
at
to Naughty Dog.
It's the naughty part of their name, man. That's what it is. It's somebody over there is just living up to their name. That's all.
Yeah. Just to end this, sometimes I feel the need, if it's a game that I'm really excited, like Xenoblade 3 right now, if someone is already playing, like a normal person, and I'm curious to hear that person's opinions about the game. Like, are you enjoying the game? Without spoilers. So sometimes I try to find stuff like that, but it's a slippery slope, so I don't go... I'm not looking forward to this right now. I'm not trying to find... because as soon as you try to read what people who actually play the game are talking about, there's a good chance that you'll find some spoilers here and there. So I'm not doing that.
The most important thing to keep in mind when it comes to these things, to game leaks and whatnot, is that, like, they're not inherently bad. They're fine. They're kind of just a natural consequence of the way games are consumed and created and released. But, like, the only thing to really keep in mind is to be respectful with it. Like, if this is if you are leaking a game, and maybe there are big story spoilers, big gameplay spoilers, just keep it within the community that doesn't mind it. Like, if you have subreddits or you have Discord servers that are specifically for spoilers,
spoiler tags,
keep it in there. If people want to look for it, it's all in this specific space and easy to find. If you start spreading spoilers to other communities without any kind of spoiler tagging or any warning or anything, that's not cool. But yeah, that's kind of just watch out with spoilers. they can have more
Pretty
impact
much.
on someone else than they might have on you. So
Yeah, yeah. Uh, but that's it, guys. I think that was most of the stuff that I want to talk about with you all this week. And just to finish the show this week, I think we can talk about what we've been playing. Starting with you, Dennis. What have you playing this week?
Yeah, well, there's two big ones actually, and I'm sure one of them, one if not both of you, can share the same. But one of them is Live Alive, right? Live Alive just came out recently, and man, it is brilliant. My girlfriend got it for me as an early birthday present. My birthday's in like 2 weeks, but yeah, I was super stoked for it, and she surprised me with it, and it's been very difficult to put down. It's a fantastic, fantastic game with so many great stories. I've completed 4 of the 7 stories so far.
oh wow.
Yeah, yeah. So, just trying to remember what they're all called, but basically the near future one is done, the distant future one is done, the Edo Japan period one is done, and the ancient. I won't say ancient really, but the more that's more
Prehistory?
mytho. No, not the mystery
Imperial
one.
China?
The Imperial China. Thank
Yeah.
you. I was trying to remember the time period. But yeah, that one's finished. So next, I was probably gonna do prehistoric. I was probably gonna do that next, and I think I'm gonna save present day for last. So I'm gonna go prehistoric, Western, and then I'll do present day last. But yeah, my God, I mean, such a fantastic game with such brilliant stories, and I wish more games would do this because it is so much more palatable to me now. Now I know everyone's kind of got different gaming habits and living situations and work situations and whatnot. But everyone's kind of how they utilize their time allotment is different from person to person. But it's become progressively harder to really appreciate and enjoy these 50-plus-hour RPGs. So being able to experience still what is effectively still a 30 to 40-plus-hour RPG, but in increments of like a roughly 3 to 5 hours per story instead, is so much more palatable to me, and I love it. And I think because of that, interestingly enough, I've had more time to put into it because I don't feel like my time is necessarily, not that it really feels this way with RPGs, but it doesn't feel like it's going to waste, right? Every movement that I make is progress towards the end, versus a lot of RPGs where there's this unnecessary bloat because I think they feel almost a necessity of like, hey, we're an RPG, so we're supposed to be 30 to 40 hours. Like, no,
True,
you're
true.
not. Like, you're supposed to give me a good game first and foremost. I feel like I don't care how long you are. It is nice, and it is historically what is the case with RPGs and JRPGs in general. But you don't need to be that long. It's not necessary. It's not a quota you have to meet. But people sort of have a bad habit of associating, whether a price tag is worth it depending on the length of a game, right? So, but yeah. Anyways, Live Alive is fantastic so far, and it's been absolutely brilliant. But the other game, which is even more palatable, is Stray. Oh my God, I
Ooh.
love you guys.
Ooh.
I love cats. I love cats like so much. Cats are everything to me. So, this game has been speaking to me since it was first announced, and yeah, I got it on PC since I don't own a PS5. I do own a PS4, but I was like, I don't want to do that. So I got it on PC, and it's been such a great time. I've only put like 3 hours into it so far, but it's so cute, and they nailed the mannerisms and the details of what a cat does in their day-to-day lives, and the animations are fantastic. But man, the world building and the environmental storytelling is fantastic. As I was playing it, it hit me that now it may not look like it on the surface, but I don't know if anybody else has felt this way that's played this. I don't know if you guys have played this or anybody listening to this has played this. Please comment if you have. But it's even though it doesn't look like it, it feels like I'm playing something like Inside or Little Nightmare, but in a three-dimensional environment. Right? It has that environmental storytelling, that narrative drive to it, and that sort of slow burn nature with that uneasiness to it that is similar to games like Little Nightmare or Inside or Planet Alpha and games like that. So yeah, I don't know. That's how I've been feeling, but man, it is a fantastic, fantastic game, and it's another another winner for me in terms of Annapurna Interactive published titles. I love all of their games that they publish, and this is another hit. They just had Neon White. What, last month, maybe a month and a half ago? That was incredible. Now they have Stray, man, and then later on this year they have Hindsight and a bunch of other stuff on the way. They have their own sort of direct happening sometime this week. That's going to be super exciting. So, yeah, Annapurna is just fantastic. But Stray has been such an incredible time. And if you're someone who loves cats, owns cats, whatever, has any history with cats, do yourself a favor again. It's a beautiful time, especially if you're into sci-fi as well. It has elements of that. That's wonderful. A lot of sort of deep conversations that happen in this game too. Surprisingly, with the robots. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong with a game that you're playing with cat, and there's a lot of cats in it. I mean, I'm super interested in it at the moment. I would like to see. I don't know if it's if it's a temporary exclusive. I would like to see it on Xbox later, or even the Switch. I don't know, but
yeah. I think it's timed at the moment because Annapurna, I don't think they have any exclusives now that I think about it. Like, all their games are multi-platform, so I think this was something that Sony just kind of paid for a sort of time exclusivity with, which is why it's probably also on PC. But yeah, give it maybe 6 months, maybe a year, and you'll see it on Xbox, more than likely on Game Pass too, because it's on, was it PlayStation Plus Extra and Premium at the moment?
Yeah.
Whatever their new tiers are, that sort of competes with Game Pass.
It was day one, yeah.
Yeah, so they'll do the same thing with Game Pass. There's no reason Microsoft wouldn't pay out the money for such a successful game like this. And it's a perfect Game Pass game, too. Perfect.
Yeah, probably. I'm looking forward to play. It looks super fun. I'm also a big fan of cats. My girlfriend in particular was super excited to play this game.
Yeah.
I think eventually we got to play it. Nicholas, I think you are also playing Live Alive. Is that correct?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, feel free to talk more about it.
Yeah, taking a break from Monster Hunter and trying to squeeze in Live Alive in between Xenoblade 3. But yeah, I mean, everything Dennis said, I perfectly agree with. Thank God it's only a 30-hour RPG, because it means I can conceivably beat it before Xenoblade 3 comes out. So, like he said, I'm very happy that we have these kind of smaller games, and it's not only like 50 hours, 60 hours, 70 hours, 80 hours. As much as I love those, it's nice to have something that's a little bit smaller, but it's still an RPG. And I think I have not played as much as Dennis. I'm only about 3 chapters in, but I really love how this game is kind of, it's taking a very different path compared to Octopath, where that game was very much, hey, you have these exact same mechanics, you have these same characters, you have the same setting, everything's pretty similar. The only difference is the individual stories. And Live Alive, which obviously, it came out a while before, but it feels similar to Octopath because of the HD 2D and the 8 stories. It's completely different. Other than the settings just being completely different between every single story, even just from a gameplay and mechanical perspective, the game changes so much between just every setting. In one setting, you are a max level character and you have to train up like 3 other weaker characters. Another setting is pretty much only story with like no fights. Another setting is just like a boss rush that's maybe like 30 minutes long. It's literally just fighting one boss after another. It's super original. It almost feels like you have these 8 different short stories that are all kind of brought together and just kind of tied together by this one engine, but they're still 8 separate games and stories. And that's not something that I've really experienced in anything else before. It makes for a super cool narrative experience of like, hey, you can... I think it's also part of why, like Dennis said, it feels very easy to digest, because it's like these short little different story tidbits that are very easy to consume, because you're never hung up on one thing for too long. You're always changing between different eras, different stories, different themes, etc. And it just feels really cool to kind of experience.
I think it's another way to put it also would be sort of how people are digesting, how people are much more willing to, let's say, binge on a TV show than they are like a trilogy of films, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because something like, let's just say where something everything's different. I mean, we can use Stranger Things as an example, but I want to use something different like Black Mirror, where every episode is particularly different, right? But each one is roughly anywhere between your standard 45-minute format to as long as maybe an hour or 10 minutes. But either way, people are more willing to get 3 or 4 episodes out of the way at once than sit down and watch a 2.5-hour movie, even though you just spent much longer watching 4 episodes than you did, than you would have with that one film, So yeah, it's kind of akin to that.
Yeah, it's like kind of that sort of, I don't know what it is in like the mental part of your brain that's like, hey, I like the fact that this is broken up further, but like you said, it's pleasant to kind of binge through and experience all these different stories.
Yeah.
It's funny hearing you guys talking about this game because even though it's a super old game, it seems that it feels fresh. The concepts, I think this game would have been super influential if it actually have sold a little bit more, if it was released in the West to get a little more exposure, because the concept, the idea, it's really great. And Nicolas even mentioned Octopath Traveler, but we don't see a lot of JRPGs doing something similar.
Yeah, I would love if more games did stuff like this, even though it's like super experimental. I think this is a brilliant game, the way it compiles all these different stories and really gameplay designs, but like Nicholas was saying, kind of puts them all under the same engine, so you have that familiarity, from game to game within Live Alive. I would love to see something like that with, let's say, a lot of indie horror games, right? There's a lot of indie horror games that are, can be as short as, even just an hour, right? So I would love to see just sort of compilation like that where you compile, I don't know, 6 or 7 different indie horror games that are all roughly an hour long. Just get through those, kind of a similar way that you would with Live Alive. It just makes it a lot more palatable and enjoyable as well.
Yeah, let's hope that now that the game is receiving a second chance, let's say, it gets a lot more exposure. I'm actually looking forward to playing later. Right now, I'm super full with JRPGs because I'm still playing Tokyo Mirage Sessions, as I said to you guys last week, but I kind of paused a little bit because we are Xenoblade 3 is starting to come really close. So I want to make a pause.
Gotta stretch the muscles a little bit.
I want to make a pause in the moments that I am right now on the game. And the game even has like an intermission between each chapter, so it's perfect for a pause. And I want to prepare because next week Xenoblade 3 is coming out.
Everything changes.
And next week, me and Nicolas will be totally different persons in this podcast because we'll have experienced the beginning of the peak of fiction. So
we'll have ascended.
We have ascended. Yeah, it'll be. We have a lot. I'm pretty sure that we will have a lot to talk about Xenoblade 3 next week. But I think that's it, guys. We managed to talk about a lot of stuff, about a lot of topics, talk about what we are playing. And next week, I'm pretty sure that Nick will be back here hosting the podcast. But thank you to you all who are listening to this point. Thank you for listening. Thank you for appearing here every week. And as always, we are available in a lot of different platforms that only Nick knows how to mention, so I'll leave that to him in the next episodes. But if you want to listen to us, just search us in any place that you'll probably find Nintendo Everything Refresh. But that's basically it. Until next time, bye!